My name's Chris Phillip.
My name is Paul Anderson.
My name's Mark Boyd.
Hello, my name is Derek Combs, and I listen to the Blue Army podcast.
My name is Matty Robson, and you're listening to the Blue Army podcast.
I guess we'll basically see how we get on. Liam, what happened, man? Did you just the wrong train or didn't stop at your stop? Like, what happened?
Nope, I'm absolutely fuming, to be honest with you. What happened? I was trying to get from Carlisle to Newport, obviously. And the train gets delayed for 20 minutes, which is, it's annoying, but it's you get them, don't you? Yeah. And then I get on the train, and they say, to make up for the time delay, we're not going to stop at any of the stops until working to make up for the time delay. And they said, if you've got your ticket going to one of those stops, you can either just get off at working, or you can wait another hour for another train.
Oh, man.
And I was like, so I got on the train to work and managed to get a lift back through to Newport with someone. It's just Northern trains. If you're listening to this, I assume you are. Sort your act out, because that was dreadful. Honestly, literally when they said that, half the train, more than half the train, it was pretty much empty on the way over. Everyone stood up. And the thing is, they clearly didn't tell any of the people that were like waiting at the other stops as well, because there was every stop there was loads of people.
Yeah,
just went straight past them. Were trying to get on the train.
That's Sean.
Oh man,
that's dreadful.
Man. Well, you're here now. We're all here now.
Are we allowed to say the train companies are dreadful?
we can say that.
Yeah, can we have a little rant at
the workers of the trains? The workers at the train company said the train companies are dreadful, so I'm sure we're allowed to do it.
I know, but we could end up down a rabbit hole if we carry on down that one. But before we do, I mean, thank Christ.
Liam will get bad.
That's it. But you've made it here. That's the essential thing. You can maybe claim a ticket back or like a third of your price. All that kind of stuff seems to be the trend these days. Like, oh, I'll claim a third back for being 15 minutes late. But no, you've made it here. We'll get things started, okay? I'll kick things off. All right, Marras, how's it gone? And welcome back to episode 92. And I am absolutely buzzing to be joined, finally, by the two men that I like to call the Cumbrian Brain Trust. I'm talking about Wills and Liam. We sounding good. We're all right. And before we get things kicked off, we're going to have a new segment right at the start of the show. But before we crack on with the new segment, it's time for a little bit of tradition here on the Blue Army podcast. And at this time of the show, that can only mean one thing and one thing only. It's time for the Blue Army podcast joke of the week. Is he having a laugh? I think he's trying to. It's the Blue Army podcast joke of the week. Get in. Right, here we go. What happens when sheep try and eat you?
Oh, no. What does happen when sheep try and eat you?
Nothing much. You just get a little graze.
Liam is taking his headphones off and walked away from the camera.
No, it was worth the journey, Liam. It was worth the journey. Come back, I promise. It'll get better now. It'll get better because it's time for a little segment that I've done a little jingle for. I've made a little jingle up for you, lads. It's a little segment we're going to kick the show off with this week. It's I'll do the jingle first.
What's happening over there? What's happening over here? It's the League 2 Roundup with Wills and
Liam. Right, lads, so you two have done a little bit of research about what's been happening around League 2. So we're going to take a little bit of a look at sort of like wider League 2 news. So, Wills, do you want to kick things off? Have you two sort of like, it was to kick things off? Go ahead.
Yeah, man. We've kind of divided the stories between us.
Cool.
Most of the interesting developments I've seen this past couple of weeks have been off the pitch and down near the bottom end of the table. And of the three I've picked to tell you about, two of them involve Crawley, so strap in.
Okay, Crawley Town. We like Crawley news.
So first, so some teams that looked in real trouble before seem to be in the process of making big changes, and there's quite a lot of money being thrown about down there to try and change things up. First up, Colchester. Things look to be going well for them. 4 wins out of 5, and they're now 7 points clear of relegation. They looked into being a real spot of bother before, and they're a team that have been on a bit of a downward spiral for several years now. But there seems to be a little more optimism all of a sudden, and this good form has been followed by an uncharacteristic spending spree.
Oh, a bit of dollar in the bank. Okay.
Well, they've triggered a release clause to sign League One Exeter's captain, Matt Jay, and they've also brought in Kelleher from Bradford, Reid from Stevenage, and left-back Wood from Orient. So they've had this injection of cash, and some of these players that they've signed that I've just listed there haven't really featured for them yet, but they had they put a few good results together, and then they've just had this injection of cash. Not sure where from myself. They've appointed a new sporting director too. Apparently their stadium was used as a location for the Bollywood film recently, so maybe that pays quite well. Maybe you get quite a lot of money if Bollywood come to town, and they're spending all this money on players triggering release clauses from League One.
It's done something. I mean, obviously they're using the money more wisely than we used the money for that Damn United film. They filmed that back a few years ago.
Did you get any money for that? We probably.
This
is Bollywood.
Probably spent it all on sandwiches.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I guess this is Bollywood as well, so maybe it isn't out of the realms the possibility that that's kind of like a lot of money that they pay to a huge film industry.
So, obviously, Colchester going up to 19th now. They're putting a little sort of run of form together. Should we be looking over our shoulder? Or,
their next opponents are another relegation threatened. Colchester's next opponents are another relegation threatened team who have triggered a release clause this week, and that's Gillingham. So, Gillingham, bottom of the table, only 6 goals to their name all season long before this weekend. And it was starting to look like they were going to get cut adrift. That's a ridiculously low number of goals. 6, I think, maybe 7, I think. I can't remember. But, they're on a run of defeats and looking like they might be getting cut adrift. So you've got a guy there at Gillingham, Paul Skelly, who's run the club since the 90s. He seemed to be a bit Marmite among his own fans. He's definitely Gillingham through and through, but I think many of them felt he was holding them back. He'd been in charge for a long time and had declined a lot. And just in December, he finally relinquished control of the club to a new American investor, though I understand he still remains on the board. And they have also triggered a release clause to sign a midfielder from League One. That's Timothy Dieng, also from Exeter. So Exeter must be wondering what's going on. Why are these clubs down the bottom of League Two suddenly coming in and nicking our players? They've signed 2 players off Mansfield, Ollie Hawkins and George Lapsley, both highly rated players. Lapsley, Mansfield, I think they paid for him not that long ago. And a double swoop also on Crawley, relegation rivals, where they've signed Tom Nichols, striker, and a goalkeeper, Glenn Morris. And goal scoring really has been the problem for Gillingham, and in other areas they've been at least up to mid-table standard. People who've seen them play say they actually do have quite a decent defence. The defensive record isn't too bad. They're just this atrocious goal scoring record. So they've signed all these strikers and started them all against Hartlepool. And Nichols, the guy they got from Crawley, scored 1 and assisted 1 from them to win 2-0. And that's with the goalkeeper they got from Crawley in goal as well, keeping a clean sheet. So Crawley fans must have been really sickened to see that. And I believe Liam has something to say about Crawley.
That's it, man.
Yeah, my section of this is on just the absolute state of Crawley Town Football Club. And it's, you know what? The thing is with it as well. I want to sit here and I want to laugh at them, because you think about that video their club put out. Well, it wasn't the club itself. It was their ownership group. It was an insulting video. You watch that video as a Carlisle fan and you know it's a bad sort of like roast video when you're looking at it and think you cringe and you feel sorry for the Crawley fans. You're not offended by it whatsoever. You just think, Oh, I'd hate to be a Crawley fan after watching this video. It's just so cringy and so like embarrassing from Crawley fans' point of view.
I'll put
To be
the
honest,
link
it's been
in
down
the video below thing, so people can see it if you haven't seen it yet.
Yeah, it's dreadful. Like it's an awful video. Yeah, and it's been downhill ever since then. Really, they took that video down quite quickly afterwards, I think. But then they just went on a mad loss spree, and everything seems to be falling apart now more than ever. They've lost club hero, club legend, their goalkeeper. I can't remember the name off the top of my head now. It's just gone. But
Glenn Morris, the guy who's
Glenn
gone
Morris.
Gillingham.
Yeah, to Gillingham. Yeah, that's the one. Then obviously the goal scorer the other day for Gillingham as well also came from Crawley. From Crawley, so they're losing their best players. There's 3 senior players that haven't been in the first 11 for a while, and they're still contracted to the club. And the ownership group have said that there's an issue with these 3 senior players, but they haven't named who they are, although fans can pretty much tell who they are, because they haven't been in the matchday squad. So there's an issue with them 3 players. There's an issue with the players that are obviously leaving. They haven't made. I don't think they've made a signing yet. I don't think they've made a single signing coming in. Or at least I haven't seen it if it has happened. But yeah, they're in such a bad run of form. They're in a serious relegation battle. They've lost 3, drawn 1 of the last 4 games. I was going to do it off the last 5. No, they haven't signed anyone at all. No. I think it was postponed, loss, draw. Crawley's last few fixtures. So they're really not doing well. And it seems to be getting worse. They did an absolute Michael Knighton at one point where they put a member of the ownership group sort of on the touchline, not as manager, but as an assistant coach sort of thing there, just sitting there, no coaching experience whatsoever. I don't think he's English. He's got no experience in the English game or football whatsoever. And he's on the sidelines just there because he's putting money into the club, and I don't understand it whatsoever. It makes no sense. He's been replaced now. And then there's the issue. Swindon Town haven't had a very good start to the season. They're up near the top of the table, but they're not where they want to be. I think the aim for Swindon Town was always to go straight back up. So the crack was they were on the verge of sacking their manager. Right? He wasn't in good stead with the fans or the board. Now, the news of him about to be sacked, Crawley Town pop up and decide we're not going to wait for him to get sacked. We're going to pay a huge compensation fee to Swindon Town to take the manager off their hands. We're going to buy. We're buying the Swindon manager that's going to be sacked in a few weeks. We'll pay what I can imagine is a large chunk of their January transfer money into buying this new manager, and his assistant coach came with him as well.
Yeah.
And it's just such clueless decisions. And there's also the further story that you told me about before, Wills.
The B team.
Yeah, the B team sort of scenario, which I think was more something that happened in the summer that they're now starting to regret.
Yeah.
Because obviously with the money, where they signed all of these non-league players to generate a sort of B team, realised they can't have a B team in any leagues in the football pyramid. And are sort of just left with all these extremely below average players that are nowhere near good enough to play in League Two, contracted to the club. So they're just stuck. They're stuck with these players on contracts. Laugh. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That's the difficult part of this, isn't it? Where it's such a funny situation looking from the outside, but you've also got to think the way these owners bought the club as easily as they did, it can easily happen to a club like Carlisle.
Yeah, and it's farcical and it shouldn't happen. I think we touched on the fit and proper test on the last one for some reason, and because I think the problem with it is it can't really catch these eccentric ones who haven't, can only kind of really catch the ones who've got some kind of shady dealings or they've gotten in trouble in the past or something.
Yeah, but I think the issue with this is they're a cryptocurrency business. Yeah. And it's never ever going to be stable, that industry. I don't think it's never going to be in a position where you're stable for the long run.
Yeah, I mean, their logo is literally just a zigzaggy line.
Yeah.
I mean, like so you basically say on top of that, the way that Gillingham are obviously trying to make waves, and Hartlepool with a new manager, and Hallam Hope reuniting with I mean, what's his name again over there? I always forget his bloody
Keith
name.
Curl.
That's it.
Yeah.
Reuniting with Keith Curl over there, and like you've mentioned about Colchester getting away from the gap. Would you put a bet on Crawley now to get sucked into that relegation zone?
I think in a few weeks' time, Gillingham and Crawley will swap places.
Wow.
Yeah, I would. I think Hartlepool are still definitely in trouble.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, Hartlepool aren't anywhere near out of trouble though. They got beat off Gillingham at the weekend.
Yeah.
So things haven't been going well for them. They've got a couple of wins, but then it's just been a draw and 2 defeats. And Harrogate seem to be slipping down there as well. If we're going to kind of round up the relegation picture.
The thing is with Gillingham though, I don't think they'll be, come the end of the season, I don't think they'll be anywhere near the relegation zone, to be honest.
No, I don't. They seem to, they've spent a lot of money
they're
on
spending money.
proven players.
Yeah, I mean, you tipped them quite highly at the start, didn't you, Liam, in the pre-season predictions?
Yeah, I might have predicted them to win the title. And they're currently bottom. I've never seen a prediction go as wrong as that in my life. But
just to round up Crawley's misery, Swindon, who they've just poached a manager off, went into their first game with their new manager and won 5-0.
Lads, fantastic job. Thank you so much for looking after a segment for us here on the Blue Army podcast. We found out what was happening here. We found out what was happening there. It was the League 2 roundup with Liam
the League
and
2
Will.
relegation roundup for some reason, but there's a lot of interesting things down there, and it's almost more interesting than the promotion race until.
Oh, it's definitely more interesting.
I mean,
the promotion race is very tight. Yeah,
it is a tight affair, and obviously
tight affair.
We'll go on to
this
talk
last
about...
week though.
That's it, exactly. We'll go on to talk about things more Carlisle United related, but a little bit of former Carlisle United player related news. Former Carlisle United striker Craig Curran has signed with non-league outfit and FA Cup famous Marine. Guess how old he is, boys? How old do you reckon Craig Curran is? Obviously, he's been out in the wilderness. He's been over to Ireland and whatnot. Go on, Wills. You have a guess first. How old do you think Craig Curran is?
34.
Ooh, Liam, how old do you reckon Craig Curran is?
43.
Right, listeners, how old do you reckon Craig Curran is? He's 33. He's 33. That's how old Craig Curran is. 33.
Just 10 years off.
Very close.
You say 43?
Yeah, I did.
Wow, yeah. Just the 10 years away there. Just the 10 years away. Also,
be like, Craig Curran will be on the phone to you.
Craig, if you're listening, I'm very sorry.
I'm sure Craig's not listening. Although he might be, we don't know. In other former Carlisle United player news, former Carlisle United captain Nick Anderton is currently undergoing treatment for a rare form of bone cancer. His teammates have all agreed to go and shave their heads in solidarity. Manager Joey Barton has also donated over £1,000 to an appeal to raise money for Nick Anderton and his family to help them through this difficult time. I'd like to use this occasion. Obviously, in the past, we have discussed Nick Anderton as a player and comments on that. But obviously, going forward under these circumstances, you just want to give your best wishes and well wishes over to Nick Anderton and his family as a former Blue. All the best to him, and hopefully he'll be having a speedy recovery very soon. Lads, question for you. How exactly did the Blues defeat Wales and Scotland in a single afternoon, do you think?
Oh, I've seen this.
Have you seen this? I reckon it's all right. I reckon it's a bit of fun. I like this story. So, obviously, we beat Newport on the weekend by 2-0. We're going to do the match report in just a few minutes. But before we get there, there's a fun little news story here. Patrick Thistle fans who were on their way to Dundee... Partick Thistle fans who were on their way. I've written it down, Patrick as well. Partick Thistle fans were on their way to the game against Dundee, which was cancelled, and decided to rendezvous with the Welshmen and joined them in the Pioneer stand, which is obviously why they look like there was a lot more Newport fans than there normally would be.
There was like a rowdy bunch of them,
Oh,
and I did think like this is. I've seen Newport fans before. They're not usually this dancing around in the stands and stuff. So yeah, I guess that must have been the Partick Thistle fans.
Yeah, they were
Probably
quite
why
good.
they all left early as well.
Yeah, they're just
Maybe
not
you have to
bothered.
maybe their train back was due or something.
No, I thought they were good. Like they were quite vocal for the first, especially the first half. They were definitely like giving it full beans in the first half. But like you said, after probably a large contingency of the so-called away support would have left quite early, probably just to get back on the motorway because they don't really care that much about Newport County. And yeah, obviously they got quieter in the second half, especially after Mr. Debut Man scored a goal. Let's go into the match report and talk about Carlisle United's 2-0 victory over Newport County, which happened this Saturday at Brunton Park. As we always do here on the Blue Army podcast, I'll start by giving you the Carlisle United starting lineup for the game. We had Thomas Hoyley in goal, the back five of Senior, Feeney, Huntington, Mellish in armour, midfield three of Moxon, Guy and Gibson. Up front was Dennis and debuting Gordon. Now, obviously, in Simo we trust, and he was proven right to start with Gordon and for the Crystal Palace man to make his debut. But were you maybe surprised that there wasn't a few more debuts on the day? Liam, do you reckon we might have seen a little bit more of one or two of the debutants, or was this the team you expected to see?
To be honest, I didn't really expect the new lad to be starting at all. I thought if you were going to get one of them into the team, it would be that I can't remember his name now, the Northern Irish guy. Yeah, him. I thought if any of them were going to start, it'd be him, because Gordon had only signed, like, was it the day before? Something like that. Yeah, he really hadn't had... Obviously, you don't know how long he's been there training, but, like... well, some of us might have more of an idea than others, but... but yeah, he obviously hasn't had a... Yeah, he obviously hasn't had a full, like, week training with them, like you would imagine. Yeah. I thought we would maybe see Shaw Silver starting... or what I predicted was that it would be Gibson up top with that McCalmont sort of it put into the midfield role. That's what I thought was going to happen. But I'm glad that he didn't do that, and I'm glad that they did start Gordon, obviously, because what a goal to start his career off at Carlisle.
Yeah. Well, were you surprised for Gordon to start the game, and if you were, would have expected to see Patrick?
Yeah, I think my thought was that Patrick would probably start. I didn't expect him to start any of the new signings just because of how new they were. And so, I wasn't entirely sure whether they'd been brought in as mainly cover or mainly for use as impact subs, or like how much they'd be challenging to start. Gordon's obviously started, perhaps also partly in mind that Patrick's not fully fit yet, or maybe isn't considered to be fully fit. So I thought maybe Gordon had started for that reason, but it's entirely possible that Simo did start him because he saw him as someone who can make an impact, which, if it's the case, then he was right.
Yeah, I mean, there's a few things that Simo did let slip in a press conference. Like, he was down in London after last weekend's game, and him and Jordan did have a conversation. So obviously that must have been quite an enticing thing for Jordan to want to come up here, is the fact that, I mean, Paul's travelled all the way down there. Simo's travelled all the way down there. Yeah. The least you can do is travel all the way up here at least once and see what it's like. I mean, as far as I know, he was at the training grounds on Friday morning. As far as I know, it was as late as Friday morning. Simo let slip in the press conference that he thought, or he felt like at the time before he chose to start at 11, that Patrick was going to be more useful for a 20 to 30 minute spell, and Jordan would have been better for a 60-minute spell. And I mean, obviously he was proven right, wasn't he, in the end? And we'll go on to talk about the match highlights. Lads, the first half wasn't necessarily much to write home about. There was some really nice passing from Moxon, who kept finding Gibson wide over on the right-hand side. Gibson likes to hug that line, and it really sort of like complements the way that Moxon can spray the ball. And he was quite he had it dialed in on the day, and in the build-up to the goal, that's exactly what happened. It was very, very, very late on in the second half. Moxon has a bit too much time, to be completely honest, on the ball, and the Newport guys are a bit slow to close him down. He has the wherewithal to ignore Callum Guy's flailing arms in the air, asking for a simple pass into the middle, and as I said, popped his head up and spotted Gibson over on the right-hand side, who, because of the amazing pass from Moxon, has loads of space to bring the ball down, because it's not the best touch in the world, but he does use that to his advantage to go past his man, goes to the inside, so has to hit a low left-footed cross, which is, it gets a deflection off a defender's knee there, which then falls to the end of the D. A very poor sort of clearance from the defender. I don't know if it's just sort of hit him on the shin and bounced up, but then it's even worse by the other defender who heads it behind him for some reason. And I mean, that's Dennis, isn't it? That's Dennis the Menace. That's the Dennis that we love. That's what he can do in the 6-yard box when he brings the ball down in those areas. I mean, it's clever and it's class. You know, it is class in football. Dennis is a classic striker. You know, he's just got that Rolls Royce kind of thing about him. Liam, the build up to the goal first, the passing in the first half, obviously not a lot to write home about, but surely Moxon stood out for you and Gibson, the two of them being able to sort of link up.
Yeah, Moxon especially. I think Gibson's ball in, I don't think it was all that great, obviously, because they managed to get a clearance off it and then they managed to get a header on it after that. It's just some of the worst, like, most comical League Two defending you've ever seen in your life, where he somehow has it behind him straight into Christian Dennis. And I didn't appreciate it at the time, but that is such a difficult finish to pull off. Like, just that, he must have hit it with, like, sort of the top of his foot to sort of get it just out left, just past the keeper, just, you know, into that far post. It's such a difficult finish to pull off.
I don't know what he's done to it,
Yeah, no, it's really difficult to do that. And at the time, I just assumed that he'd sort of like just managed to tap it through the keeper's legs or something like that. But he doesn't do that. When you look at the replay, that's a class goal. But I think you're right in what you're saying with Owen Moxon. You know, like that first half really, really wasn't anything to write home about. Like, it was a really dreadful half from both teams, I'd have to say as well. Neither team really proved anything. But, you know, Owen Moxon stands out, obviously, because he's a class above the rest. And some of them passes, like the one to Jordan Gibson in the lead up to that goal, he's just someone else, isn't he?
I mean, there's more examples later on in the game, but obviously, Will's the finish from Dennis there is. Are we getting spoiled by this? Are we starting to expect this from Dennis now?
Well, I wouldn't want us to rely on him too much, but he's been popping up with these really smart finishes, intelligent runs, just basically classic centre forward, knowing where to be and when. He's good at kind of like nipping on these opportunistic sort of ones where he's taking a deflection and kind of put a good finish on it as well. We could do with more from other parts of the, you know, especially of our attack. We've actually, you know, our second highest goal scorers have been midfielders, Moxon and Callum Guy. So it's good that Commander Gordon has got on the score sheet right away, because if he can start getting goals and Patrick as well, then we've got more threat up front. But it's not to take anything away from Christian Dennis. He's been pretty consistent this season, and I think he'll definitely break 20 for the season. Can he get 25?
It'd be nice. I'll tell you what I'm not worried about. I'm not worried about if we go up, him not being able to score in League One. I think he'll, you know what I mean? It's not that kind of problem for him. He's smart enough to still score at that kind of a level. And I think, like, we've already got a League One standard goal scorer if we do end up getting that push into the season, which obviously a lot of teams will maybe, you know, worry about being able to keep hold of. But I think you know, we're going to be able to keep hold of Dennis if we do go up, and he's going to be just as dangerous in League One as he's able to be in League Two because his game is so intelligent. You know, he thinks just that little bit more outside the box than your average defender might be able to.
Yeah.
And seems to be able to do really well with his instincts. Wills, you were in the Warwick Road ends for the full game, obviously.
Yeah.
So in the first half, you would have been able to see the battles going on between the old Carlisle United battering ram, Ozzy Zanzala. How do you feel Huntington and Feeney put up with him in the first half?
I think that we had a few dicey moments near the start, especially one where Holy was at fault and really they should have scored. I think they had another decent chance, but then even though they were coming at us a lot throughout the first half, there were no further really strong chances. Huntington and Feeney were holding them back effectively, so they were taking more long shots, and the shots that were taken were usually quite tame and easily gathered by Holy. So even though it kind of felt at times like they were having the better of the game, I think we kind of kept Zanzala and the other Newport attackers fairly well under control. I think Zanzala had a game that it reminds me of the last time Zanzala was at Brunton Park when he played for Barrow, and it was a similar story for him there, where he looks dangerous when he gets the ball. He's strong, he runs at people, he finds ways through, but then his final touch is just not there, or his shooting's tame and wayward, and in the end, it doesn't really feel like he's as much of a threat as he sometimes should be.
Yeah, I mean, Huntington obviously took that yellow card in the first half. So, do you feel like that was just, Liam? Do you feel like those kind of tackles are necessary to be able to keep hold of strikers like Zanzala, and having three across the back is almost like a benefit because you can have a defender on a yellow kind of thing to take that challenge, because you can, then the other guys will make up for it, maybe going in, and maybe they become the stopper?
Yeah, well, obviously you'd rather he didn't get booked because it's always dangerous having someone at the back on a yellow card. But I'm not sure it was yellow, you know. Like, I don't think it was as bad a challenge as the ref seemed to make it out to be. But he's always been a bit of a dirty player, Zanzala, hasn't he? So he's gonna get those sort of, like, you know, he's roughing up the defenders. Yeah. He's gonna get a few thrown back his way. But yeah, I don't think it didn't prove to be too much of an issue. So.
Yeah, and Newport didn't have much else of a game plan either. There was a lot of just a pass it to Zanzala and see if he can run at them. So, you know, once we figured that out, we could probably even double up on Zanzala because it didn't seem to be threatening us from anywhere else.
Well, that was it. And that seemed to be what happened when they came out in the second half. Carlisle got better and Newport didn't get any better, really. And the game plan seemed to be quite figured out. And they did seem to match up Huntington with Zanzala for the height. But when Zanzala had it down on the floor, we started doubling up on him. Now, Carlisle's second goal came from a very nice, long, looping high ball from Joel Senior, which goes over the top. The defender gets his legs mixed up just for a split second, which I think is the reason why he gets the worst of this header, because he just can't get that half yard back. So the header spirals, I mean, just directly into the air, in which Dennis becomes the menace we all know he is, brings it down fantastically, holds off the defender, and finds the debutant John Carmani Jordan, who takes the ball fantastically, left foot, right foot, left foot, right foot, into the box, past the defender, left foot finish, centre of the goal, past the goalkeeper, runs into the Warwick Road and embraces his new fans. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. The Warwick has a new hero, and his name is John Carmani Jordan. I mean, Wills,
Gordon.
like I've already said,
Gordon.
It wouldn't be me if I didn't fuck you up. It wouldn't be me if I didn't fuck you up. Wills, you were there in the Warwick. I've seen you run towards.
I was down the complete other end though.
I mean, how did that look from your angle though?
It looked like every bit the great goal it was. You know, sometimes when you see a goal and you think he's held on to it too long, you think he's taken too many touches. because you're like, hit it now. But
Yeah, that Toby Shaw Silva goal.
yeah, but I mean, young lad, he took it with a lot of composure, and it was really kind of like crafted well for him by Christian Dennis. Like you say, Dennis the Menace pouncing on opposition mistakes, gets the ball, has a bit of strength, and lays it off for Gordon, who's then through on goal. Still has work to do, but he's presented with this chance that he can make something of. So, no, it's good. And like I said before, it's good to see a new name on the score sheet, especially an attacking player.
Yeah, I mean, Liam, when you're behind a player, like your angle probably was as Kaimani took the ball and ran towards the goal, it's just as exciting as when the striker is running at you. I mean, from your angle, how do you feel like the build up to the goal was? Were you just begging him to pull the trigger, or I mean, it's cool, calm, and collective, really good. I mean, is he 19-year-old?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
I didn't know. I didn't have confidence when he ran forward. I'm not going to lie. I didn't really think he was going to score, but I'm so glad he proved me wrong. It reminded me a lot of Amari Patrick's first game back when we re-signed him against Bradford, where they sort of get the ball out in that wide area and they're running in the middle. I think Amari Patrick might have took a little bit further wide, but it's a very similar position to have received the ball into the one that Gordon did as well. And yet, I was just so happy for him. Like because I think it's not only his first senior goal; it's his first senior appearance. If he retires now, he's got 100% record. So just like
touch wood.
Yeah, well. But yeah, I was just chuffed to bits to see him scoring. And as well, that'll give him so much more confidence going into this season. Like to score on your debut like that. He'll now see that as like, that's what I do now in senior football. Like there's a lot of these players, like I feel like I mention him every week now, but Sorensen, I saw somebody say a really nice quote that it was like, for every Callum O'Hare, there's 5 Sonny Hiltons. And I'm just glad he wasn't one of them. And he got the goal straight away. I'm just happy to see another striker score, and it looks like a good sign.
Yeah, I mean, you cast your mind back to Tom Lawrence scoring on his debut. It just sets you off to have a good spell with that club.
That's it. Yeah, I mean, you want to see someone else getting double figures in the second half of the season, don't you? And if it's someone going from 0 to 10, that's going to be fantastic. And I mean, I'll leave it there about scoring 10 goals in a season. Anyway,
right. He's on a goal drought.
he's slightly. He had a pop. He had a good pop from about 30 yards.
Oh yeah, he knows he can. He knows he can have a go now.
He knows he's allowed.
It's even on. I don't think he's anywhere near 10.
5. It's happy. He's on 5. He's not doing bad. Oh mate, if he gets 2 goals, it's like, man, you're gonna be shitting yourself.
I will be. Absolutely. I'm kind of hoping this new guy, the lone guy, gets a few games out of him, just to sort of not let him get it.
He's not a replacement for Guy. He's a replacement for Gibson. But we'll see. Obviously, we'll see. I'm looking forward to see Alfie coming into the team. And I mean, after the Bradford game, we've obviously got a series of Saturday, Tuesday for a couple of games, and that's going into the Barrow game. There's a Rochdale game in there. I think the Harrogate or someone, Hartlepool or someone's in there as well. So obviously games we want to be winning against teams like lower in the league, so we want to make sure we've got a good strong team, and hopefully Alfie's going to get some minutes, and hopefully he's going to be able to contribute, and we're going to be able to pick up as many points as possible running into those fixtures. But talking about this fixture, I took to social media and I said, well then, how do we feel about the 2-0 win today? And what do you think about the new lads? And some of the comments I got back. I mean, I got more comments back than I think I've ever got back on social media. So I just want to say thank you all so much for being so interactive with the Facebook page this week. And if you don't follow or like or sub or rate or whatever like that, please give us one of those. I don't ask very often, so I'll just give you a quick ask right about now. Anyway, Simon E said, I feel the board should be congratulated in appointing Paul Simpson, a genuine, sensible appointment. Guy B said, the first half couldn't put two passes together, but the second half was well better. There was plenty of comments like that, but
Well better.
there's plenty of comments like that. But David Gill has a bit of a joke around with us. He says, sack the board, sack the manager. ... Hang on.
He's right with the first half.
He says, hang on. Sorry, that was meant to be for last January. He's absolutely over the moon. Simo and Greg have done a great job with the Blues. Other people also mentioning the fantastic job that Simo and Greg have been doing together at Carlisle United, and the fact that it was the board that put them together at the end of the day. Other comments saying up the Blues, and it's a bit too early to really say much about the new lads. I mean, fair enough. It is a bit too early to say too much about the other new lads, but yeah, obviously we've already mentioned about Gordon. Got it right that time. I'm going to get that wrong a lot. That hopefully we're going to get to see him score a lot more goals in the future. Lads, great result, 2-0 win. It's time for us to give our Foxes feature man of the match for the 2-0 victory against Newport. I'm going to go first. I was torn between the fantastic defensive display Morgan Feeney put in, obviously getting the clean sheet, contributing towards a clean sheet, doing so well to deal with Zanzala throughout the game. And also, it just wasn't quite enough. I had to give it to Mox. I've mentioned him already during the match report. I just feel like his passes were absolutely on point, and we were looking dangerous in very undangerous positions because Mox could unlock people with those passes and pop the ball in positions to really get us into attacking positions where it didn't look like we were going to be in that attacking position 2 or 3 seconds ago. So for me, it's Owen Moxon. Liam, who are you going for?
The main man at the back, Big John Mellish. I just think he's so good, isn't he? I absolutely love that man. I genuinely think he is our best player. Like, as much as I love Moxon, as much as I love Dennis, I think genuinely this season, John Mellish has been our best player. Like, he's probably my player of the season so far. He's just so good. And he fills me with so much confidence. Them little runs from the back. And I feel like when Paul Simpson pushed him into midfield in that game, it changed everything. Like, that's when we started playing a lot better towards the end of that first half and, you know, carrying it on into the second half. Just moving Mellish into midfield. It's a change to the system you can do without making any subs. And Paul Simpson's got an absolute, you know, bit of gold with John Mellish there. I love him. He's getting my man of the match.
Take my wife. If
Liam's wife is listening, not your wife.
Anyway, Wills, who are you going for, man?
When was the last time that all three of us picked 3 different man of the matches?
I'm not sure. I mean, we had a little run of form where we were all going similar.
Yeah. No, well, we're going to all have different ones this week because my man of the match is the man who created 1 goal, scored another one, especially towards the end of the first half where there hadn't been that much quality, and maybe the wind played a part in that because it was blowing a hoolie, but the game had been a little bit stagnant with most of the traffic coming towards us. But then Christian Dennis popped up with just a bit of individual nous and skill, and suddenly we're going in 1-0 up, and that had a massive effect on the game. Just having got that goal before half time, then Partey plays in the second goal, which is also down to just his awareness of what's going on around him. So I think he deserves the man of the match from me for the game.
Yeah, man. I mean, there we go. 3 very different Foxes features man of the match. But that's what happens when a team plays. It was a great team performance.
The official man of the match was Gordon. So
we got 4
different. Yeah,
4 different. I mean, it's what happens when you've had such a good game. I suppose a lot of great performances.
Before we move on as well, sorry.
Go on.
Can I give an honourable mention to Callum Guy? Just like I was tempted to give it to him as well. Yeah. Just ever reliable. What a player. Don't actually drop him. I was joking before.
That's the end of the match report, lads. And there's only really one thing we do at the end of it, and it's to give our predictions for next week's game. Next week's game, it's a little bit deja vu, to be honest. I don't think it was that long ago since we played Bradford, but it is Bradford away. Saturday's game, next week's game. The manager, Hughes, is under a lot of pressure. I mean, I predicted Bradford to do quite well this season. I think I might have even said second or third, or maybe even first or something like that. I'm pretty sure I put them around the top three. They're not. No, they probably won't do it now. But at least they're not bottom of the league, though. But yeah, they're very up and down at the moment. They seem to be able to sort themselves out one week, but then fall apart the next week. And I think we're getting, hopefully, into a very nice run of fixtures. And if we can start by beating Bradford, it's going to be a very good January going into February for Carlisle United. And I would like to see us go there confidently and beat them by 3-0. So that's what I'm saying. Wills, what are you saying?
Not quite as confident as you. I think it's a good time to be playing them. They do seem to kind of like they'll have a poor run and then they'll get a couple of wins. We've not long since played them. We know they're beatable. We know how to beat them. They are under a bit of pressure. The performances haven't been up to the fans' expectations. They didn't play well when we saw them last. So obviously it's at their place. So I'm not going to kind of go right out there and predict a 3-0 win. But I'm going to say we're going to win still. I think it'll be 2-1.
Okay, competitive and the clean sheet getting broken. Go on, Liam. What have you got?
I'll go somewhere in between. I think I'll go 2-0. I don't like Bradford at the minute. I don't think they've got a very good manager, despite what half of the world seems to think.
No, it seems to have kind of soured for him because even at the start of the season, the Bradford fans were excited that they had a good manager, but this season they seem to be going off him.
Yeah, as I said they would at the start of the season. I said he would be the first manager to be sacked, didn't I? I wasn't quite right. I wasn't quite right, but I don't think he'll neck the season.
I reckon that contract's really expensive to heave him out of. Like,
it will be, but like if they drift down into mid-table, I don't think the fans will leave the club much of a choice.
Yeah, I mean the thing is, you kind of expect them to I'd expect them to do something in the transfer window because because the resources they do have. They haven't done a huge amount yet. Players have been leaving Bradford.
Yeah, they've sent that player out on loan to Marra, haven't they? Everyone was really excited about signing in the summer.
Yeah,
that young is just a bit immediately shipped off to Marra in January.
Yeah, so they've brought in a couple of loanees. So I don't know if they're maybe kind of like still waiting to get their wallet out, but so far, at least, they haven't done much of the transfer market.
No, I mean three very different Foxes features man of the matches, 3 very different match predictions for next week. I mean this Saturday's game away against Bradford. I mean, we're obviously all hoping for a win though at the end of the day, and for Carlisle,
you're forgetting a match as well.
Plus on, what's that?
You're forgetting a match. We've got a match before that.
Oh, not before the podcast comes out though.
Not before, no, but tomorrow, Cumbrian Derby.
Oh,
Carlisle v Workington Reds in the Cumbrian Cup. Forgetting about that news.
I thought I could have snuck it past because the podcast isn't out till Wednesday, so I thought we might have been able to get away with that. But I mean, Carlisle City are out of it already, I think, aren't they? Unfortunately, because that was fun going down to Guildford Park. That was really fun going down to Guildford Park. And hopefully I'll get to go down there again in the very near future, especially considering it's only a stone's throw away. But yeah, are you going to that one? Are you going to go to Workington then?
Yeah. It's a lot nearer for me than than even Carlisle is, to be honest. But yeah.
So are you going to report back on what you see?
I will. I'll report back to camp.
Some of the younger lads, see who's playing, see the future of Carlisle.
All right, okay. Well, that's your report for next week, wrapped in there. We've sent him here. We'll send him there.
Roving reporter.
No, that'll be loads of fun. That's something to look forward to next week. And I mean, lads, thank you so much for joining me here on the Blue Army podcast. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you back again once more. And to be honest, there isn't really anything else for us all to say, apart from bye for now.
Bye for now.
Bye for now.